Hello, everyone. Welcome in to Dr. Darnise's House of Religion, Magic, and Conjure. I've been gone for a minute, but now I'm back. Thank you for joining. Um, yeah, I had some stuff to wrap up. It's the end of a semester in a school year, so I had to be on that professor tip and get all that done. So here we are, mid-May, and I'm done with that. So I really planned this summer to come on and do quite a few more videos and take on a topic that I've really been meaning to integrate all along, but I realize that, I don't always. And that has to do with taking a deeper dive into various spiritual themes, spiritual kind of topics. And I'll tell you what I mean, and how I came to this decision or conclusion. I'm always talking about like our Black Guru series or, uplifting Black people, Black spiritual practices, and that kind of thing. And what's made me really frustrated is that in certain aspects of spirituality, in this thing called, like New Age or esoterics and metaphysics, people who are doing spiritual alternative spiritualities, let's just say, much like, when I talk about hoodoo or something, but, people who, read tarot or, collect crystals, do herbal magic, that kind of thing. There's not a lot of Black people doing it. And I know there are some Black people doing it, but what I mean is there's not a lot of Black people who actually get attention for doing it. And so, I'm always doing research and watching a lot of YouTube videos about, from people who are channelers and who talk about higher consciousness, who talk about spiritual awakening, ascension, the really expansive, esoteric kind of teachings. And none of them are Black except for Muji. Now, I've mentioned Muji before. He's a Jamaican man who I think lives at least part of the time in India. He's become, a spiritual teacher kind of guru kind of figure. And I do suggest you check out his videos, Muji, Mooji. But for the most part, it is, non-Black people, white people, Asian people who have sort of cornered a certain market in the discussion around alternative spiritual practices, as if Black people have not been involved. And this just frustrates me. And I've talked about how it frustrates me, and that's what led me to create the Black Guru series. If you haven't seen any of those videos, then please check those out. I hope this isn't hitting against my earring isn't hitting against that. So please check out the Black Guru series, and I'll be adding to that. But more than that, or in addition to that, what I want to do is just dive into some of these topics myself rather than talking about who's not doing it and why they're not doing it and how Black people are excluded. Why don't I just do it myself? Sometimes it bees like that, right? If you see a thing, if you see a void in the market, so to speak, if you see that something is not being done and it bothers you, then maybe you're the one to fill it. So I just intend to make my contribution and certainly invite other people to do so as well. But I just decided, let me just add what I can. So what I really intend to do, especially over the summer, is have us talk about some of these spiritual, metaphysical concepts, and just dive deep. And so, what I wanted to talk about today is what I'm calling a spiritual crisis in our society. And of course, that's affecting Black people as well. And what I mean by that, a spiritual crisis in our society, is like, why is it that we are just a society that's so divided? Why are we at each other's throats, right? There's so many things that are imploding, shall we say. Basically all of our social structures are imploding. And there's a reason for that. I mean, clearly things just need to go. Racist, sexist, Homophobic systems need to go. All of the ways, the old ways need to go. Sometimes in our own individual lives, when it's time to make a move, when you've got to let go of some stuff too. I was just talking to a client about this in her life. She needs to let go of some stuff. It's shedding season. And for us as human beings, and those of us here in the United States, we're having our particular experience. It's shedding season. It means we've got to get rid of the old stuff that no longer serves us so that we can go on into higher densities, higher dimensions of consciousness. So when I say that we suffer for a lack of a spiritual center is what I mean to say. Really, in our society, we're lacking a spiritual set of values that anchor us. And so everyone is kind of out for themselves. Everyone is operating according to fear. That's why people are coming undone. Like right now, what we see happening, we see people hoarding gasoline, right? In the Southeast, I guess is where it's happening. People are hoarding gasoline because they think that there's not going to be any more. Didn't we just go through this a year ago with the toilet paper? Didn't we go through this last year with grocery store shelves being empty? And it wasn't because there really wasn't enough. It was because some people chose to hoard out of fear and scarcity. And those are completely antithetical to faith and having any sort of spiritual center or core value system. Now, of course, a lot of these people who are hoarding, this is, kind of comical to me, but kind of ridiculous, are hoarding gasoline, would probably call themselves Christians, right? Because this is a so-called Christian country and it's largely in the South. And so they've completely forgotten about the seven deadly sins of gluttony and greed. But anyway, I'm just using that as an example to say, when there's no spiritual center, people disintegrate into fear and panic. And that's what we've been seeing as a result, or as one of the results from this pandemic situation we've been in. People are in terror. And even people who say they have a spirituality, a religion, it's not providing them any comfort. And there's nothing there. There's nothing on the inside. And so people are acting completely crazy. And we see people, well, specifically white people who, I'm going to say conservative white people, who feel like they're losing the America they've known. They feel like they're losing everything familiar to them, right? They'll say, I don't recognize my country anymore. Or, the liberals are trying to take our country away from us, or, insert whoever. Black people are trying to take it away from them. Mexicans are trying to take it away from them. Any immigrants trying to take it away from them. Gay people trying to basically everybody else is trying to take their America away from them. And that's the America they knew. Well, we're shedding the old because it's time to level up in terms of our vibration and our consciousness. That's what's going on. We as a human race have the divine opportunity to level up and go into the next stage of our evolution and consciousness. And that means this low vibrational energy of fear and scarcity and greed and fighting cannot ascend. And so we're having this like duking it out kind of situation. Probably you've heard the idea of spiritual warfare, that there's some kind of spiritual warfare going on. Well, in a way, yes. You could look at it in terms of the way the Bible has presented spiritual warfare, but or you could look at it more metaphysically and say, yeah, there is the next stage of our evolution that is arising. And then there's the resistance to that. So, if you want to personify it, you can and say the angels and devils, or, good versus evil, or, however you want to look at that. But I'm calling it, you know, in a metaphysical sense, there's an up leveling that's happening. And we really don't have a choice at this point. The earth itself is already shifting into fourth density level of being, consciousness, and third density, which is lacking in light in comparison, has less light than a fourth density kind of environment. It's an environment, third density is an environment where you can have this kind of strife, where you can have this kind of opposition, contrast, what we call problems, where you can have this real idea of separation. And so that we have to fight each other. I have to have it, otherwise you'll take it from me and I won't have enough. That's third density kind of fear out picturing, right? So we've got to fight everybody, because if we don't fight everybody, we won't have enough. And that's what won't survive as we literally evolve into a higher consciousness as spiritual beings having a human experience. What it is to be human is evolving. Our consciousness is expanding, and certain low level vibration and vibrational activities can't come. So what's happening is we are living in a time where we are experiencing the disintegration of all those kinds of things. Pretty much every aspect of our lives is up for grabs, is up for disintegration, or at least revision. Like, you know, I'm a college professor. What's happening in higher education right now? We had to totally redo how we do higher education, right? We all went on Zoom. Universities lost a lot of money because they couldn't put students in housing, right, and charge for housing. There's been a sort of a spotlight being shined upon universities, and like, oh, is a university education even worth it anymore? What about student loan debt? And if students can't get, you know, student loans, and they won't be able to go to college. And, you know, so there's a spotlight, is my point. There's a spotlight on the way higher education has been and how it will continue. And, you know, that's just one example to say that, you know, not only are we looking at obviously a political system reformulation, we're also looking at it in every aspect, economics, I don't know, you name it. Obviously, in terms of religion and spirituality, church membership has been declining. We don't know what it's going to really bounce back to be when people can even go to churches again. Now, some people have been, you know, crying the blues because they haven't been able to go to churches, but I bet you a lot of those people crying the blues weren't going in the first place. And so we're going to see, as restrictions lift and people really can go back into churches, if they will actually go. And we already know a lot of younger people don't want to go to church no more, as James Baldwin once said. A lot of us as Black people moving away from traditional models of Christianity, at least, because it doesn't serve us. It's not giving us the cultural component that we want, right? So how we have done religion in the past is changing. And so of course the resistance is going to be based upon fear, and of course we're going to see people acting out of that fear. So an increase in violence, an increase in suspicion, and, you know, where people can't even talk to each other about a difference of opinion, right? People don't talk to each other anymore. People are on social media just saying hateful things to each other. We've got division, you know, in our media. We've got division, you know, being spewed from the White House and from the previous administration. And this is what it looks like, but we're on the way to something. So when I say we're having a spiritual crisis, in crisis is actually also opportunity, right? Crisis and opportunity go hand in hand. And it is incumbent upon us, as we evolve, to see opportunity and say, yes, we have to grow now. We have to grow up, evolve, expand. You know, think about the story of in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve. Now, a lot of people have a very traditional understanding about that story, very literal. You're not supposed to eat from the tree of life. And they committed a sin, they got kicked out. God was unhappy and essentially cursed human beings, and then later on sent his son Jesus to save everybody. Well, rethink that as here was an opportunity that Adam and Eve were given to evolve spiritually. All of us have to leave our parents' home, right? The Garden of Eden was their home, right? It was time to grow up and mature and leave. And here we are again. It's not that then that God was so angry at them and punishing them, except to say, hey, it's time to grow up. It's time to mature. It's time to go into the next stage of your spiritual consciousness. And here we are again as we go from third to fourth density, heightening our spirituality, our spiritual essence. It's time to level up. It's time to grow up, mature. I always say religion is like training wheels, meaning institutional religion is like training wheels. It helps you, but for so long. It's only good for so long. And then you have to take the training wheels off and learn how to balance and navigate without it. And that's what's happening. So let's see, what else would I want to say about that? I think I'm going to wrap it here. I don't want the video to be too long. I'll just wrap it here and let you know that for at least for the summer, it's my intention to give you more spiritual teachings. And please leave in the comments, what kind of topics around, metaphysics would you like to have me talk about, or have some live conversations where we could, kind of talk to each other. Because instead of me complaining about who's not doing what, I'm going to just jump in and start doing it myself. So I'll leave you with the most basic spiritual teaching that there is, really. And that's that all is one. All is one, and we are that. And so next time I'm going to come back on and I'm going to explore that more and explain what that means, in case you're not really clear on what that means, but probably some of you are. All is one, and we are that. And so if you've stayed with me this long, I sure appreciate you. Give me a like, subscribe, and share. And I will see you next time. Oh, also, join me Sundays on Instagram. I go live Sundays on Instagram somewhere between 6 and 7 p.m. Pacific time. 6 or 7 p.m. Pacific time on Instagram at Dr. Darnise, of course. So that's all for now. See you next time.